Today, I want to tell you about one of my favorite historical figures because I think we can learn a lot about geopolitics and foreign policy from one of the most enigmatic and peculiar historical figures that we've ever seen. And that, of course, is Charles Maurice de Talleyrand Perigord. He was the first prime minister of France, but he also has some fascinating connections with American history that we're going to talk about today. So, to start, one of the more fascinating aspects of Talleyrand, as he was colloquially referred to, is his ability to survive regimes. So, he was born in 1754, and he went through some of France's most turbulent times. He was part of the regime of Louis XVI, the Ancient regime, but he ultimately sided with the French Revolution and served in the Estates General. Now, during a couple years in that period, he actually was exiled, but then he sided with Napoleon and helped Napoleon come to power. He served as Napoleon's foreign minister for almost 8 years at different points. And eventually he got tired of Napoleon and sided with the Bourbon Restoration when Louis XVIII came back to power. Eventually, he sort of stepped away from politics, but then he was again brought back during the July Revolution in 1830 when Louis Philippe I came to power, and he served as ambassador to France at that time. So Talleyrand had this amazing ability to sort of just move through the various regimes, whether it was the monarchy or Napoleon the Emperor or revolutionary France. And so he was able to stay in power and influence French politics in a whole bunch of ways because he was so impactful as a foreign policy analyst, but then also just his political skills as well. So Talleyrand actually had some really fun and peculiar connections with the United States. My favorite one, of course, is that he actually shared a mistress with one of our founding fathers, Governor Morris, who, like Talleyrand, was known to be quite the licentious person. Those who don't know, Governor Morris is one of our more colorful founding fathers. He famously lost his leg running away from the husband of a woman he was having an affair with and crashed into a carriage. And he also died because he tried to perform surgery on himself with a whalebone to relieve a bladder infection. But Governor Morris actually helped write our Constitution and is one of our most important founding fathers. So Talleyrand not only had this deep personal connection with Governor Morris, he actually stayed in America for a couple of years during his exile that I mentioned a moment ago. And in fact, he would become very close friends with Alexander Hamilton. And when Aaron Burr tried to stay in France and stay with Talleyrand, Talleyrand actually rejected Aaron Burr because Burr had shot Hamilton. More infamously, though, Talleyrand was part of the XYZ affair, in which he solicited bribes from American diplomats, and the Americans refused to pay. And this ultimately led to the Quasi War in 1798 to 1800 between the US and France. So Talleyrand actually has some very fascinating and intimate connections with the United States. Now, Talleyrand offers us some really useful lessons in how to engage foreign policy and analyze particular issues. So, Talleyrand's greatest accomplishment came at the Concert of Europe, or Congress of Vienna. This was after Napoleon had been defeated, and all the great powers of Europe got together to try and create a balance of power between them. And France had just been defeated, didn't have a lot of say or power. So Talleyrand had to basically use his wits in order to get Austria and Prussia and Russia and the United Kingdom to agree to the various terms. And so he would play them off of each other. He would appeal with flattery. He pulled out all of the stops for France to be defended, and he was able to do it. So, the major lesson from Talleyrand is you don't always have to be in a source or place of power in order to still secure the interests of your client or sponsor. But Talleyrand also offers us a great lesson in understanding the waves of history. He was able to move between five different regimes because he understood how the history of France was changing, and he was very attuned to the popular will and the way the country was likely to move. So by staying very attuned to that, he was able to be quite successful. Now, to go back to the sort of licentiousness of Talleyrand, one of his greatest sources was actually the number of mistresses that he had. He gathered a great amount of intelligence from the various mistresses because they would usually be sleeping with powerful people as well. That's not necessarily a lesson to learn, but I think it just adds some more interest to him as a person. So there's obviously a lot more you can learn and derive from Talleyrand's life. And if you're interested, I highly recommend reading either Cooper's biography or Robert Harris's biographies, both of which are pictured.